The calling of Matthew. When grace sits at the table, he was sitting at a tax booth. Matthew despised, not just because he worked for Rome, but because he worked against his own people. He collected taxes from Jews and gave them to the oppressors, with a portion pocketed for himself. To Rome he was useful. To his people he was a traitor. To the rabbis he was unclean. But then Jesus walked by. No speech, no warning, no demand to clean up. Just 2 words, follow me. And Matthew stood up and left everything. He left the money, the protection of Rome, the life he knew. He followed the man who called him without shame, without hesitation, without delay. On that evening, Matthew hosted a dinner, but not for priests or politicians. Tax collectors, sinners, outcasts, people like him. And Jesus didn't just tolerate it. He sat at the table. The religious leaders were outraged. Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? To them, holiness meant distance. To Jesus, holiness meant presence. He heard their complaint and replied, "It's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I've not come to call the righteous, but sinners." And this story teaches us, Jesus doesn't wait for perfection. He calls people in the middle of their mess. Grace doesn't avoid dark corners, it enters them. When Jesus says, "Follow me," he's not inviting you to religion, he's inviting you to a new life. Matthew didn't clean himself up to be worthy. He responded to love that saw him as he was and didn't walk past. Maybe you've believed the lie that you're too stained, too compromised, too far. But Jesus is still walking by tax booths, still calling out to people others avoid, still saying, "Follow me." And when he calls, everything changes. I'd like this story if you've ever felt unworthy but still heard his voice. Share it with someone who needs to know grace still knocks. Subscribe for more real stories that remind us. Jesus doesn't just clean sinners, he sits with them first.